Good afternoon, and welcome to the Accelerated Molecular Discovery Proposers Day webinar. I'm Valerie Browning, Director of DARPA's Defense Sciences Office, and it is my privilege to provide you with a brief introduction to DARPA, its mission, and the role of the Defense Sciences Office in supporting that mission. This year, DARPA celebrated its 60th anniversary. The agency was established in February of 1958, a few months after the launch of the Soviet Sputnik satellite. It was a time of great angst and uncertainty for our country. People wondered about the national security implications of an adversary having achieved a technological milestone that we hadn't. DARPA was created out of a sense of urgency that we never again be surprised by the technological advances of an adversary. Today, DARPA's mission remains the same as it did when it was created 60 years ago: to create and prevent strategic surprise by making pivotal investments in breakthrough technologies for national security. Within DARPA, the Defense Sciences Office is the oldest of the current offices and has been supporting the DARPA mission for almost 40 years. We are unique amongst the DARPA offices in terms of the diversity of our programs and people, and we tend to be the most forward-looking office across the broadest landscape of technologies. We like to consider ourselves as DARPA's DARPA in that the investment that DSO is making today will help inform and shape investment strategies throughout the agency, and even more broadly throughout the DoD, 3, 5, 10 years and beyond into the future. So within the context of DARPA's mission to make pivotal investments in breakthrough technologies for national security, DSO's investments represent some of the earliest of those pivotal investments in order to ensure that we create and prevent scientific surprise. DSO is one of 6 offices within DARPA. 2 of these offices, the Strategic Technology Office and the Tactical Technology Office, are focused on platform and payload systems technologies that provide new, agile, and adaptive capabilities for our military to win in any environment. The remaining offices focus on more foundational investments across specific technology domains. Our Biological Technologies Office is focused on biology for national security. Our Information Innovation Office is addressing challenges in cybersecurity, data analytics, and human-machine symbiosis. The Microsystems Technology Office is exploring ways to better exploit the entire electromagnetic spectrum and leveraging globalization of technology to advance electronics beyond the limits of traditional Moore's law scaling. Finally, as I will discuss in more detail in the next slide, DSO investments are spread broadly across thrust areas that support all aspects of the DARPA mission. And while our investments do represent a good fraction of the agency's most fundamental research, it is important to note that we make these investments from a mission-informed perspective. DSO's current portfolio is organized across the technical thrust areas shown here. Because measurement of signals ranging from DC to daylight is ubiquitous across so many DoD missions, we have a limits of sensing and sensors thrust. Here we consider both fundamental and practical limits because while it's important to understand the art of the possible, we also need to make sure we are working towards solutions that ultimately can be delivered as a deployable capability. Social behavioral science is critical for many DoD applications, ranging from training and mission planning to deterrence and wargaming. However, leveraging innovation in the social sciences for DoD applications presents multiple challenges. Additionally, we increasingly see machines and robots evolving from human tools to human partners, and we don't yet know how to optimally plan for DoD missions that involve heterogeneous teams of humans and machines. For these reasons, and to address these challenges, we have a complex social systems thrust. Because ultimately the goal of DSO R&D investments is to ensure that U.S. warfighters have access to the most advanced technologies, and that our nation is never again surprised by the scientific innovation of our adversaries, we have an anticipating surprise thrust. The programs within this thrust area tend to focus on innovation aimed at addressing a specific existing or emerging national security challenge. Under this thrust, we have some nearer-term investments that we end up pursuing because as we work across a very broad and diverse technology landscape, we occasionally come across a technology being developed in one domain that may address an important national security challenge in another domain. And finally, because the increasingly complex, technologically sophisticated, and dynamic military operational environment presents multiple fundamental challenges in how we design and plan for future military needs, from materials to platforms to systems, we have a cross-cutting frontiers in math computation and design thrust. Here we are exploring novel computing architectures and substrates, new decision algorithms, and new mathematical models that enable faster, better decision-making for a broad range of DoD missions. Here you see the names, faces, and areas of expertise of DSO's current program manager staff. Again, we are proud of the diversity of people and programs. I encourage you to visit the DARPA website, where you can learn more about our program managers and program interests. Ann Fisher is our resident chemist and is the program manager for the new Accelerated Molecular Discovery program that is the subject of today's webinar. I'd also like to draw your attention to several of our newest program managers. Bill Carter joined DSO this past summer, and he will be helping us build a portfolio in materials for harsh environments. Ted Senator also joined us over the summer, and he's going to help us to continue to build a more robust portfolio on next-generation artificial intelligence technologies. And finally, our newest PM, Tatiana Kurchik, joined us just earlier this month, and she is helping us explore innovation in quantum science, sensing, and simulation. For those of you who, after learning more about the Accelerated Molecular Discovery Program, decide to respond with an innovative concept or approach, I'd like to give you some valuable insight into what the agency, and in particular what the AMD PM, Ann Fisher, will be looking for. In making a compelling case to DARPA leadership for investment in a particular program area, all of our program managers must address questions that comprise what we call the Heilmeyer Catechism. George Heilmeyer was a former DARPA director who originally introduced these questions. It is important that you, as potential performers on a DARPA program, understand and embrace the Heilmeyer Catechism as well. In responding to Ann's program solicitation, I encourage you to think carefully about how you will communicate in a clear, compelling, and concise way your responses to the Heilmeyer questions. I know that you are all anxious to hear more about the AMD program from Ann and how to do business with DARPA from our contract specialist, Susan Sheen. However, I'd like to take just a few minutes to make you aware of some additional program opportunities that may be of interest to you. Our Young Faculty Award Program is an agency-wide program that is administered by the Defense Sciences Office. On an annual basis, DARPA PMs from all of the offices submit topic areas for the YFA solicitation. Proposals are solicited from early to mid-career rising star researchers at academic and nonprofit institutions. The goal of the program is to expose these researchers to DARPA and more broadly to the DoD, have them gain an appreciation for the problem sets that the DoD faces, and hopefully recruit them as principal investigators and even program managers for future DARPA programs. Another opportunity I would like to share with you is our disruptioneering program. DSO pioneered the disruptioneering concept in 2017 as a novel, rapid R&D acquisition process to help increase the pace of innovation. As articulated in our National Defense Strategy, Secretary Mattis has prioritized harnessing and protecting the national security innovation base, as well as delivering performance at the speed of relevance. DSO's disruptionary program directly addresses this mandate. Periodically, throughout the year, we will post special notices on grants.gov and FedBizOps to alert the research community of a disruptioneering opportunity. Proposal submission is a much streamlined process, and our goal is to get from posting of the opportunity to funding award in 90 days or less. Finally, based on the success of DSO's disruptioneering program, DARPA has initiated an agency-wide Artificial Intelligence Exploration, or AIE, program. Similar to disruptioneering, AIE special notices will alert the R&D community of an upcoming AI-related funding opportunity. Since posting the umbrella AIE program notice, we have released 2 special notice topics, and we expect to release more in the near future. Our AIE program is part of a larger agency-wide DARPA AI Next campaign. Some of the goals of this campaign include improving the robustness and reliability of AI systems, enhancing the resiliency and security of machine learning and AI technologies, and pioneering the next generation of AI algorithms and applications. I'd like to conclude with this slide showing the difference in how DARPA views revolutionary versus evolutionary thinking. DARPA investments strive to make disruptive advancements in support of national security. We are always looking for revolutionary thinkers to support our mission.
Hi, and welcome to the Proposers Day for the Accelerated Molecular Discovery, or AMD program. My name is Ann Fisher, and I'm a program manager in the Defense Sciences Office. Valerie just provided a nice overview of the office, and now I want to take some time to walk through the goals and challenges that we're trying to address in the AMD, or Accelerated Molecular Discovery program. The goal of AMD is to accelerate the design, validation, and optimization of high-performance molecules for DoD needs. This program is really looking at the area of autonomous molecular design. We seek to develop new systematic approaches that increase the pace of discovery and optimization of high-performance molecules through the development of closed-loop autonomous systems that exploit, build, and integrate tools for extracting existing data from databases and text, executing autonomous experimental measurement and optimization, and incorporating computational approaches to develop physics-based representations and predictive tools. Such methods in the AMD program will ultimately enable AI-based design and discovery of completely new molecules that are optimized across a set of multiple molecular properties for specific DoD needs. Before I walk through some of the background and justification, as well as what we hope to achieve in the AMD program, I want to point out that the most important thing you'll hear today is that it's critically important that you read the Broad Agency Announcement, or the BAA. The BAA will provide those important details that will help you shape your proposal and your technical approach, as well as provide the critical and important points for justification of that approach. so please take time and read through the BAA carefully. Efficient discovery and production of new molecules is essential to realize capabilities across the DoD, from simulants and medicines essential to counter emerging threats, to coatings, dyes, and specialty fuels needed for advanced performance. Current approaches across all of these application spaces to develop new molecules are intuition-driven. They're mired in slow, iterative design test cycles, and they're ultimately limited by the specific molecular expertise of the chemist, bottlenecks in the synthesis of candidates, and the pace of by-hand validation and optimization of these candidates. Even in industries like pharmaceuticals that exploit high-throughput screening of millions of molecules a day, the subsequent design, synthesis, and testing of molecular analogs is a months to years-long process. Brute force high-throughput screening of common, albeit large, library has yet to yield productivity benefits over chemical intuition and past precedent, which still boasts a success rate well beyond HTS methods. Ultimately, then, we might begin to think, is it not just the rate of experiments that matters, but the quality and efficiency of those experiments? Given a potential structure space of over 10 to the 60th for pharmacologically relevant molecules alone, with just 10 to the 9th molecules of any kind reported to date, the possibilities are seemingly endless, but our current approaches are considerably constraining. AMD will address these pace and performance shortcomings to ultimately enable autonomous design of molecules with defined properties for DoD needs. How should we begin to think about applying AI to chemistry? If we look at domains like computer vision and natural language, where data is abundant, accessible, standardized, and cheap to acquire, over a number of years, the community has been able to develop fundamental representations that incorporate the critical information on which we can then train and develop standard models. For example, in computer vision, the fundamental representation is the pixel, and convolutional neural nets, which extract spatial relationships among these pixels, are now standard tools to query large image datasets. But in chemistry, our data is sparse, it's inaccessible to algorithms, it is not standardized, and it's time intensive and expensive to acquire. So how then do we begin to think about developing a fundamental representation? What are the features of a chemical system, a molecular system, that are critical to capture to be able to develop standard models, or even to begin to understand how we might apply existing AI models to the chemistry domain? Performers in AMD will explore these questions so we can begin to develop the critical insights that are necessary to enable application of AI to chemistry. We can begin to think about how we might address these questions by looking at a number of concrete technical challenges that exist in the application of AI to chemistry today. The first that I want to talk about is representation. Conventional molecular representations that are based primarily on structural features do not capture chemically relevant features such as dynamics and physics. As chemists, we know that structure is not always an indicator of activity. So-called activity cliffs, where there are quite similar structures like the ones on the left side of the screen, one of which treats tuberculosis and the other of which causes blindness. So here structure is critically important, and a simple three-dimensional rotation across two different bonds in a molecule causes these property differences. But if we look at the right side of the screen, at 3 of dozens of antimalarial compounds, you can see how structurally disparate these molecules are. How do we understand how these structures impact their ultimate properties? Because in fact, it's not just structure that it's important. It's not the hundreds to thousands of structural features that we can feed into an AI-based system. It's features such as the dynamics, chemical dynamics of interacting systems, and the physics, quantum mechanics that are critically important in many cases to be able to define a property of a molecule. The second problem rests on data. Our existing data is sparse. We have over 10 to the 60th possible molecules. Again, simply looking at the pharmacologically relevant molecules alone. And we know of about 140 million molecules. But it's not here that I'm talking about the sparsity of the system, although this is extremely sparse sampling of the potential structure space and the potential property space. It's actually the data of these 140 million molecules that are known, which is incomplete and biased toward optimized results. So for example, if we're getting data from publications on a feature such as reaction yield, these yields are pre-optimized, where yields are reported in publications are ones that have been optimized over a series of reaction sequences and reaction variables. If we really want to think about how to generate negative data, unoptimized data, real data for a chemical system that we can begin to use in training, we need to think about this in terms of what data is and how we can make it algorithmically accessible to these computational platforms. Our conventional and experimental methods are insufficient to generate new data at the needed scale, rate, and scope. And having data that's incorporated and integrated into a computational platform to optimize as models are trained is critically important. Performers in AMD will be challenged to understand and overcome these and other challenges in applying AI models to chemical systems. And in AMD, we will address these challenges by developing the tools, models, and closed-loop experimental systems that ultimately enable autonomous design of molecules with defined properties. I want to go back for a moment to what I described at the beginning and walk through this quite carefully. In the AMD program, DARPA seeks to develop new and systematic approaches that increase the pace of discovery and optimization of high-performance molecules. Performers in the AMD program will develop complete autonomous closed-loop systems that either exploit existing capabilities or develop new capabilities across three areas. The first is being able to incorporate existing data. So building and exploiting tools for extracting existing data from databases and text. This is graphical data, this is data that you might find in a publication or an electronic lab notebook, for example. The second is building systems that can execute autonomous experimental measurement and optimization. The goal here is to increase the rate at which we can generate data and how to systematize the data generation so that across a series of platforms, we can have better confidence in the reproducibility and the error in these data sets. The third is to incorporate computational approaches that develop physics-based representations. That is, being able to incorporate when it is important, quantum mechanics, and when it is important, molecular dynamics. Just two examples that you might want to incorporate into a physics-based representation. And how we might use all of these to develop new predictive tools so that we can design molecules. And importantly, in the program, performers will come together again across all three areas to ultimately enable AI-based design and discovery of completely new molecules that are optimized across multiple molecular properties for desired function. Now, I want to underscore this point here about multiple molecular properties. These are fundamental properties like solubility, toxicity, permeability, spectral signature, things that are fundamental to molecules. But when we think about optimization across a series of these properties, we begin to then be thinking about how these molecules might be used in a specific application. So that ultimately the tools will be incorporated and utilized for application-specific design, but the tools themselves will be generalizable across a certain molecular space. I want to go through these in a little bit more detail and describe exactly what each of these components entails. So first, we're calling these focus areas: the data extraction, representations and models, and data generation focus areas. And again, an AMD performer team will come in and propose across this entire set to develop a complete closed-loop system that has the computational and experimental tools to be able to extract existing data, build new representations and models, and generate data that can then feed into these representations and models. So for data extraction, or FA1, we want to apply techniques such as natural language processing and computer vision. There are some great tools that are out there right now which we may be able to incorporate into the program to extract and transform information from articles, manuscripts, and ELNs. These will build and feed into representations and models, FA2. This is the representations, the AI models, and optimization frameworks that will provide property prediction, process optimization, and inverse molecular design. These will be fed by a data generation engine, experimental tools that are automated and ultimately autonomous to develop and integrate the control software, reaction and robotics hardware, and instrumentation that is necessary to enable autonomous experimentation. Again, it's the integration across these areas, and I'm going to walk you through how we sort of see this going as the program proceeds. At the beginning of the program, data extraction, representations and models, data generation, FA1, 2, and 3 will be separate. And as we go through the program, they will come together in terms of their compatibility and in terms of their reliance on each other to ultimately, at the end of the program, have a complete system for data extraction, representations and models, and data generation. It's important to note that a single proposal must address all three focus areas. Having talked through the focus areas, I now want to provide a high-level overview of the program organization. As you can see on this slide, on the left we have AMD performers, and on the right we have IV&V, or independent validation and verification teams. Now you'll focus your proposal on what's on the left side of the slide. This will be the R&D community of AMD performers. Again, looking at the focus areas for data extraction, representations and models, and data generation. These will be complete interdisciplinary teams that address all three focus areas. And as I mentioned, we're focused on developing closed-loop systems that can measure, model, and predict among a set of fundamental molecular properties that are relevant to molecular function and performance across a variety of applications. So properties of interest in the program include boiling point, vapor pressure, density, including liquids, solubility, spectral signature, degradation products, and toxicity. Proposers may choose to build a system to measure, model, predict, and optimize additional properties, but should select at least 4 from this set. And you'll see how this integrates into the milestones and metrics of the program as we move forward in the presentation. Proposals should identify one or more potential applications, whether it be medicines, dyes, agrochemicals, coatings, fuels, etc., because this really defines the set of selected properties that are relevant, and it also affects factors such as the available data and the target molecular classes. But it's important to note that performers should focus on developing a generalizable system that enables the design of molecules with specific properties that are informed but not dictated by an application. The tools, models, data, and systems developed by the performer community and AMD will be transferred to government teams throughout the program. This is on the right side of the slide, the IV&V teams, potentially beginning as early as midway through the base period. We want to emphasize in this program creating and leveraging open source technologies and architectures that make data sharing and collaboration among performers, and most importantly with the government IV&V teams, key aspects of the program. So it's critically important in the proposal that proposers lay out intellectual property rights, and we strongly encourage you to align those property rights with open source regimes that are clearly defined in the proposal process. So these IV&V teams will take the tools, models, data, and systems, validate and test them. And importantly, take these tools and evaluate the transferability of what is developed on the left side in these generalizable systems across a variety of application spaces. Part of this program is beginning to understand the transferability of models that are developed for specific molecular properties and applications to other property spaces. I want to point out very importantly that government teams that are interested in being part of the IV&V process should not respond to the BAA. The broad agency announcement for AMD is simply soliciting what's on the left side of the screen. Government teams should email amd@darpa.mil for further information. I want to talk a little bit about the program organization and schedule. and touch on the milestones and the integration across elements that will be expected during the AMD program. Now, again, you'll find additional detail in the broad agency announcement, and I encourage you to look there to find the detail that you need in terms of the metrics and milestones that should be addressed in the proposal. AMD is a 48-month program that's broken into 3 phases. There's a 14-month phase 1, an 18-month phase 2, and a 16-month phase 3. In each phase, we will develop and enhance specific components of the overall system and advance toward a fully integrated autonomous closed-loop system by the end of the program. Now, it's important to note that performers will be expected to make measurable progress in each focus area. However, the performance of the complete system and progress towards integration will be critically important as we move forward. In phase 1, performers will be expected to adapt existing tools such as natural language processing and computer vision to chemistry data, with a focus on text and structure diagrams. Performers will be developing hardware and control software for initial demonstrations of early-stage automated experimental systems. They will also initiate transforms for extracting data directly from proposed analytical instrumentation. And finally, develop AI model architectures and active learning capabilities. The focus on integration in phase 1 will be ensuring that FA1, or data extraction, and FA2, data generation data, is amenable to the representations being developed in FA3. In parallel to this, performers will begin working and engaging with government IV&V teams. In phase 2, performers will adapt and develop tools for extracting data from complex data sources such as lab notebooks, tables, and graphs. For FA2, they will demonstrate automated experimentation that's informed by models and refined molecular representations. Integration tasks in phase 2 should focus on ensuring that FA2 data from the experimental systems is of value to the FA3 model, and that FA3-defined experiments can be executed on FA2 platforms with a human intermediary. That is to say that the model informs the experiment, but that the system is not fully autonomous. Performers in this stage will begin transitioning data, tools, and algorithms to the government IV&V teams if they haven't done so already, and will also begin application-specific testing and validation for the proposed application space. In phase 3, performers will develop methods to accurately correlate data across multiple data sources. In FA2, they will demonstrate fully autonomous closed-loop feedback between the experimental platforms and the FA3 AI models. And they'll identify domains of greatest applicability for their developed models and representations. This is helping us understand how the experimental systems and the models that are developed need to be bounded in terms of their applicability, and this is a critical and important part of this fundamental program. Phase 3 integration will focus on autonomous closed-loop feedback between all focus areas without a human in the loop. In this phase, performers and government IV&V teams will further refine their approaches towards application areas of interest toward the testing and validation of the tools, models, and systems that are developed. As I've mentioned already, it's important that proposals address all program requirements, metrics, and milestones during the 48-month program, and address FA1, FA2, and FA3, as well as the transition to the IV&V teams. I've already introduced the schedule to you at a high level, but I wanted to provide an indication first of when we plan to start the program. For planning purposes, you can consider a start date in July of 2019, as well as to provide a high-level overview of how each of the focus areas will begin to integrate as we move throughout the program, and how DARPA will measure progress. So there will be a series of measurable milestones, again, that are detailed in the solicitation, that will test the feasibility and the performance of each component, as well as its integration with the others. So for example, in phase 1, we'll look at how the data extraction, the CV, and the NLP tools, among others, are performing. We'll look at the compatibility among these components in terms of how the data that's generated in those systems can be incorporated and integrated into the models and representations. We'll look at the performance of the experimental system, as well as the ability of the algorithms to predict properties. In phase 2, we'll look at compatibility, again, among these components, and we'll provide performers with a property prediction challenge, as well as an inverse design challenge. In these challenges, performers will be either given data sets or specific properties of interest. And what we want to see is how their systems, their tools, whether it be an experimental tool, whether it be a data extraction tool, or whether it be a model, or the complete system, performs with respect to that specific challenge. The specifics of these challenges will be provided as the program proceeds. And you should incorporate into the statement of work the ability to address and approach these challenges. As I'm sure you can tell by the scope and the breadth of this program, interdisciplinary teams are viewed as critical to the success of AMD efforts. Again, I want to emphasize that proposals must include FA1, FA2, and FA3, and the integration of these as we go throughout the program. Now, I've listed some relevant expertise here, but this is not all-inclusive. Teams should have a composition that addresses the specific technical approach and the plans that they put forward in the proposal. But disciplines such as chemistry, computer science, chemical and electrical engineering, information science, mathematics, folks who have a focus on AI-based representation, quantum mechanics, calculations, and how to speed and learn from those calculations will be critically important in the program. And I want to emphasize again that the performers will be required to work with the government IV&V teams. You shouldn't propose in the proposal a government IV&V team. These are teams and relationships that will be developed as we go throughout the program. But as we go throughout the program, the performers themselves will be integrated with these government IV&V teams. So they'll begin to apply and understand and learn from the tools that are being developed in the program. I've talked a lot about what AMD is, but I want to spend just a minute talking about what AMD is not. So specifically excluded are proposals that do not address all three focus areas in a single proposal. Specifically excluded are approaches that focus on inorganic molecules or composites or metals or other non-organic small molecule materials. We really have a focus in this program on small molecule organics. Specifically excluded are approaches that do not rapidly progress from human-in-the-loop automation to an autonomous model-driven experimental system. That is to say, in phase 2, the models should be defining the experiments, but a human might still have to revise the system and execute those experiments. But by the end of the program, the model should be defining and the process control should be executing those experiments. Specifically excluded are approaches that are application specific and do not focus on the outlined molecular properties. Now again, we need to be application informed, and the data sets might be generated for specific application spaces. So for example, pharmaceuticals might come from specific areas of chemical space. But the tools that are developed need to be generalizable across application spaces, and the proposals need to be justified, need to provide technical justification for how those tools that are going to be developed will be generalizable across potential application space. Specifically excluded are approaches that claim rights that hinder the transferability of the tools to government IV&V partners. Again, this is a critical aspect of the program for verification and validation of what performers are developing. As we move into the program and think about the performance and the management of the program, I want to talk a little bit about review and oversight and how DARPA might do things a little differently than some of the other funding agencies. So there will be constant communication between DARPA and the performers. And collaboration, communication, and transparency in this program is critical. We're going to organize quarterly review meetings. These will be twice yearly, full program principal investigator meetings in the Washington, D.C. area, and then twice annually, one-on-one review calls between DARPA and the government team and the performers. And performers can expect at least one site visit to each performer location during each program phase. Now, you will be evaluated against the program milestones, But I want to make and emphasize a point here. We'll be learning a lot in this fundamental research program. We'll be learning a lot about the potential limitations of the tools that we have at hand right now and our capability to develop new tools and how we might be able to integrate and understand what is chemically relevant and how to make those things that are chemically relevant algorithmically accessible. And it's really important that we are upfront about what these challenges are and that we try to address them as a program whole. That's the vision that I'm moving forward with, and that's how I'm going to manage the program. So this open collaboration and communication between performers and a government team and also among performers so that we can help address program-wide challenges will be a critical part of the program. I want to switch gears here as we finish up the presentation and just talk about some logistics. As you can tell from the scope of the program, you'll probably need to find teammates and partners that can bring in additional expertise. So there are instructions in the special notice about teaming information. So DARPA will facilitate teaming in a very specific way. Interested parties should submit a one-page profile that includes your contact information, a description of your technical competencies, and other desired expertise from other teams if applicable. So this is essentially what you could provide to a team and what you might be looking for in terms of a teaming arrangement. It's important that these are single pages. We will only send out the first page that you provide us. Anything after that will not be provided. And so if you don't incorporate everything on a single page, it might not make sense to the broader community. All profiles must be emailed to AMD at darpa.mil no later than 1 o'clock on October 22nd, 2018. This is 1 p.m. Eastern, October 22nd, 2018. We're going to try to turn these around and email them back out to everyone that same day. Now, it's important to note that you will only receive the profiles that were submitted if you submit a profile yourself. Proposal abstracts. I highly encourage you to submit an abstract in advance of a full proposal. This enables us to look at the approach and what you're thinking about in terms of a technical plan and help you understand whether or not it fits within the program before you spend the time and money that it takes to put together a complete proposal. So we will respond to abstracts with a statement as to whether or not DARPA is interested in the idea, and we'll try to be very quick in that response so that you have ample time then to prepare the full proposal. Regardless of our response to that abstract, however, you may choose to submit a full proposal. And I do want to point out one important part here because I think there is this accelerated timeline to get the proposal abstracts in and then to get the full proposals in. You do not need to have a complete team at the proposal abstract stage. But if you don't have a complete team, I'd ask you to talk in the proposal abstract narrative about what component you're missing and how you might go about addressing that component. I wanted to provide a couple of key dates here for your review. They include when the abstracts are due, the deadline for the final questions in terms of the BAA, the final response that we'll publish in response to those questions, and the proposal due date. I want to take a minute to talk about questions. There are likely to be questions about the solicitation in terms of what might be in scope, what might be out of scope, what certain things mean in the solicitation. Please submit these questions via email to amd@darpa.mil. And again, you can submit them anytime until that deadline that you see on the slide. We'll answer the questions in an FAQ that will be posted online. So please do not include any proprietary information or specifics about your technical approach. We also won't be able to answer questions such as, is this approach within the scope of the program? If you want an answer to that question, you should submit a proposal abstract. Any questions submitted to me via my email address or submitted to anyone outside of amd@darpa.mil will not be answered. Again, I want to emphasize that all questions will be answered and posted online in an FAQ document. So even if you didn't ask a question, I encourage you to go look at this FAQ document as we move through this proposal process. And with that, I just wanted to finish up and say I'm really excited about the AMD program, and I'm really looking forward to your ideas. The ideas that you generate and include and incorporate in the proposals and then the work that you do in the program are critically important to moving this vision forward. And I really look forward to working with you.
This is Susan Sheehan from DARPA's Contracts Management Office. Today I will be discussing the BAA process for the Accelerated Molecular Discovery BAA. The most important guidance I can give you is to read the BAA. The words in the BAA are meaningful. Pay careful attention to should, will, and must requirements. Teaming under this BAA is strongly encouraged. Refer to BAA Section 8B for collaborative efforts and teaming discussions. Abstracts are strongly encouraged. This is addressed in BAA Section 4. The mandatory templates are referenced in BAA Section 4B1. A full proposal contains technical and administrative sections. The mandatory templates for proposals are referenced in BAA Section 4B2. Doing well in the technical proposal could lead to a selectable determination. This is addressed in BAA Section 5B. Note the particular requirements in BAA Sections 1C through 1H for the program. These requirements must be addressed in your technical proposal. The Technical and Management Proposal is Volume 1. The proposal templates and proposal summary slide template are found in the BAA. Doing well on the administrative sections of the proposal could lead to award. The cost proposal is Proposal Volume 2. The cost volume template and cost breakdown templates are included in the BAA. There are different templates for procurement contracts or OTs or for grants and cooperative agreements. This is addressed in the BAA. The third volume, Proposal Volume 3, addresses administrative and national policy requirements. There is administrative proposal template included in the BAA. Instructions regarding proposal preparation and submission are detailed in the BAA and its attachments, as posted on fbo.gov. You should follow these instructions closely when preparing your proposal. Detailed proposals are requested for phases 1, 2, and 3 of the AMD program. Phases 2 and 3 are options. For the AMD program, there is one technical track with 3 focus areas that span the 3 phases of the program. Proposers must address all 3 focus areas. All questions regarding the BAA should be emailed to amd@darpa.mil. Frequently asked questions, including those from today, will be available on the DARPA DSO Opportunities website, identified in Section 8A of the BAA. You should check this website frequently as it is kept current. Funding instruments for this BAA will be procurement contracts, grants, cooperative agreements, and other transactions. Per BAA Section 1H, all proposals must clearly describe plans for interfacing and integrating their proposed technologies, approaches, with other performers. Proposals that fail to include interface and integration plans will be deemed non-conforming and removed from consideration for award. Note the program-generated data requirement at BAA Section 6B5. BAA Section 6B4 addresses intellectual property. Proposers are to assert rights to all tech data and computer software generated, developed, and/or delivered, to which the government will receive less than unlimited rights. Offers are to identify the assertions These assertions apply to prime and subs, and to justify the basis for asserting limited rights to the government. Abstracts are due no later than November 1st, 2018 at 4:00 p.m. Abstracts are not required to submit proposals, but are highly encouraged. Proposals are due no later than January 14th, 2019 at 4:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The evaluation award process is detailed in BAA Section 5. You should read the evaluation criteria carefully. The criteria in descending order of importance are overall scientific and technical merit, potential contribution and relevance to the DARPA mission, and cost realism. The government reserves the right to select for award all, one, some, or none of the proposals received. The government anticipates making multiple award. Since there is no common statement of work, proposals are evaluated on their individual merit and relevance as they relate to the stated research goals and objectives. Proposals will all be evaluated against the BAA criteria. So to repeat, the most important thing is to read the BAA when you are preparing your abstract and your proposal.